Well, good evening and welcome to this Sunday, December 27th edition of the football show, the Island Stats Football Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and joining me is Macy O'Deal. We are waiting for Nikita Robinson to join us as well. She's just finished a session with the women's national team, so she'll be joining shortly. We've had a few technical difficulties, but we're here. The final show for 2020, Maceo. Obviously, this year has been hampered for football, maybe for all sports in Bermuda, but for football, we saw the season abruptly come to an end last season at the beginning of this year, and now we've seen the season interrupted still in the first half of this year, of this season, to end the year. Just your thoughts on how this corona pandemic has affected football for this season. We already know what happened at the end of last season, but currently for this season.
I mean, I feel for the players and the coaches, right? Because I know they want to get back at it. So it's definitely impacted the rhythm. Football is a rhythm sport. You know, you gain a rhythm, and you build on that rhythm that you have. So I think now we're back to square one as it relates to that rhythm and that focusedness that will come with games week to week. So definitely it's had a major negative impact on football and the development of it for this year. I mean, straight across the board, not just for the premier teams, but for the youth teams as well. So I mean, this whole year has probably been a total write-off as it relates to what we deem to be normal as it relates to implementing our football in this country.
Yeah, we're probably looking at, if all goes well, we know the government extended the interruption of normalcy until, well, they extended it from the 22nd of December for another 14 days, which takes us to January 5th. But even if we're given a clear on January 5th to resume some sports, and if football is one of those sports, I can't see it starting until possibly the 17th or 18th that weekend, because it gives teams a mere 12 days to prepare to get back up and running. The association could not just say, okay, well, this coming weekend we're going to have games. That wouldn't be a smart thing for the game itself.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I'm actively involved with the health department as well as the national security of Bermuda as it relates to the pandemic and sports. And what's being developed and which will be released shortly is a return to play policy, a return to play guideline. And what does that look like returning to play, in each phase of returning to play? And obviously everything will be guided by where the country is currently at as it relates to the spike in cases or the downward spike in cases as it relates to what return to play looks like. So once that's released for the country and the sports to be guided by of how sports will move forward. And obviously it's going to be is each sport is different, because if you take a sport like tennis, it can operate it can operate properly in this current regime, or a
Yes.
sport like golf, they can operate properly. But a sport like football, team sports are going to be challenged. They're the most disadvantaged as it relates to this current pandemic that we're living in.
Yeah, obviously it's a lot of things to take into account. We're talking about a sport or sports in general, but the people that are given the guidelines are looking at the entire country, which will ultimately make the decision on how they return to sport, regardless of how one feels that we should just jump back into it. Each sport, when you guys do come up with that return to sport policy, which will be another one, because you had one, there was one done for when cricket started or sports resumed in the summer. You probably tweak it now to reflect on the time that we're in now. Would I be pretty much correct in that?
Yeah, you are. It would just put into play what those return to play policies look like in each phase of where we are. Because return to play would look like, first of all, can we start to train in groups of 10, as it would be right now? If you're training in groups of 10, what does training look like? Non-contact, then okay, can we move to full training? Then can we move to competitive training? And then can we move to public matches where you have fans? So as to and each phase will be each sport will fit into whatever phases the country is at, as it relates to the number of cases. Obviously, if the cases are going down, the government could be a little bit more lax in allowing to move to phase 3 or phase 4. So be it.
Right, right.
But we're looking to release those phases first thing in the new year, so sports can be guided by that.
Yeah. One of the things on the outside looking in, you probably have more information than most, being on that inside, but I don't want to pry that out before it's supposed to come out. But on the outset, we're due to play international football in March, so it's kind of a race for time if we want to be properly prepared from the local standpoint, because we have to play in Canada, and then we have a return match, a second match in Bermuda a few days later. So obviously the Bermuda Football Association, CONCACAF, everyone's guided by each country's rules and regulations. And of course, we're at a race of time because you want to be as properly prepared for that international stuff. So we need some domestic stuff up and running relatively soon.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And what is recognized amongst everyone in the country, the value of sports, not just participating and competing and winning and losing, is people's mental, physical, emotional state. Sports has so much more value from those pieces. People getting out, actively exercise, and releasing tension, releasing whatever that's there. So you're exactly right on the right page as to the importance of getting sports back up and running and guided in a safe, orderly manner that takes in consideration the state of the country. But it is recognize the importance of getting sports back up and running to some capacity.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's turn our attention to the first half of this season. We've seen some teams get off to a fast start. We've seen the tables top and turn. We've seen the bottom of the standings kind of take its shape. But we look at the fact that Robin Hood are out in front, having played 8 games, 7 wins, and a draw with 23 points. Devonshire Cougars and PHC have both played 9 games, 5 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. Then the Dendytown Hornets have played 8 games. They have 15 points with 4 wins, 6 draws, and a loss. Somerset Trojans are next with 14 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses in their 8 matches. North Village have played 8 matches. They, as well as Devonshire Colts and Southampton Rangers, all have 12 points. North Village have 3 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. And both Devonshire Colts and Southampton Rangers have 2 wins, 2 draws, and 4 losses. Crossroads are next with 5, along with St. George's. Both teams have 1 win each, 2 draws. Crossroads, having played 8 games, have 5 defeats. And St. George's, having played 9 games, have 6 defeats. And Somerset Eagles have 3 points after 7 matches with just a 1 win and 6 losses. So when you hear that, obviously with a game in hand, Robin Hood, no, they have 22 points, 22 points. Is that right? 7, 3, 21, 22, yeah, 22.
Yes,
Robin Hood have a 5-point lead with a game in hand. If they manage to pick up that victory kind of puts them in the driver's seat heading to, well, we still got to finish those 2 games for the first half, and then you start the second half. Whether or not we can get all these games in a short space of time is left to be seen.
Yeah, that's the more pressing question, isn't it? Is can we get the games in a short period of time, and what does that look like? You know, what does it look like? Making sure, does it look like, okay, we play the games without fans? You know, you know that that's the real question: is can we figure out? I think right now we're probably already accepting that maybe the friendship trophy will not happen. That usually takes place over the Christmas period.
Yeah.
As to, okay, where you're going to fit that in.
You got to forego. You got to forego something, and that will be the same thing as the FA Cup did last year.
Yeah. So that, we know that that was the decision that they came up with last year, where they didn't play the FA Cup. So the BFA is definitely going to have their hands full with decision as to implementing football, as well as making sure that it's safe. And like I said, maybe a solution there is no fans
Yeah.
at the game.
Yeah. It's interesting because the Bermuda Cricket Board and the Bermuda Football Association had sat down at the end of the cricket season and before the football season started, and they kind of talked out trying to being able to allow cricket to start early. They have international commitments as well coming up, but this kind of sets both programs back because you're dealing with the same clubs. Majority of the same clubs are playing dual sports. So, well, especially the field operators, it kind of puts things into a ticklish situation unless the, like you say, no fans and possibly getting Somerset's lights up and running, somehow getting PAC's lights up and running. And if not, having to utilize matches being played at the National Sports Center, whether it be the North Field or the main pitch.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, right? I mean, the first point I look at is something that I've been talking about for a little while: having a complete separation of cricket and football.
Mm.
And meaning, what I mean by a complete separation, you either play cricket or football at this level, and cricket and football become selfish in addressing their own mandates to grow their sport. So right now it's a problem because the same players that will be playing cricket will be playing football. So it creates a problem. But if those players that were playing cricket and were different from the players playing football, then at least it's a separation that each of them can. Then you're talking about club grounds that play cricket and football. If there was a separation, then cricket can run its own mandate and football run its own mandate. But it creates a problem. So I think that's a conversation the country has to have really quickly if it wants to grow the two major sports in Bermuda.
Mm.
So and that's a ticklish and touchy conversation, as we all know.
Yes.
It's a ticklish and touchy conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be here because we don't have the resources of players nor grants to facilitate both at the and what I've learned, that used to be a problem in the UK many years ago, 50 years ago, where clubs were facilitating rugby, football, cricket. They realized they couldn't do it.
Mm.
They couldn't do it at a proper level, facilitating those things, and they moved away from facilitating multiple sports.
Right. But those, what you're referring to, those are the grounds that hold at that time 30 or 1,000 people. And obviously they're making money off of the turnstiles. We have nowhere near that coming through the gates to offset that type of thing. Just being devil's advocate and trying to look at it from a different side. How do we then turn around and being able to finance these separations of grounds?
Well, that means let's just think for what happened this year. What happened this year, all cricket was implemented at White Eagle. two grounds, right? If I'm correct,
No,
two.
it
Why
was
do you
four grounds. Four
four,
grounds.
four grounds? Okay,
Four
there
grounds.
all cricket would implemented, and it had multiple games, so it created a better atmosphere of more fans
Mhm,
coming there.
mhm,
Financially, now these clubs are gotta agree to share the profits or share things that are coming in. They have to agree to share that. So if cricket is implemented at two grounds, four grounds, or whatever, those grounds then come offer, at a certain point. Let's call it March. You get those grounds ready for cricket, but it's all about profit sharing and collaboration. Can these clubs come together and share? I mean, it's the same thing that county cricket did. They play it at uh at St. David's and at Bay, and
mhm.
now they're figured out a way to share in those profits with all the people that participate in it.
But not everybody's happy.
Well, we're not
I
talking
mean,
about people's happiness though.
from the surface, I mean, it looks good and everything, but not everybody's happy with that.
Yeah, we're not really talking about people's happiness. We're talking about improving the sport.
Because the same thing, obviously, the same thing happens in Western County, and the same thing happens in at Central County when they do play. But how do we sit down and hammer those things out? Because obviously, that's how it's been forever and ever. Amen.
Yeah, and you just have to have this difficult conversation. You have to have proper financial people in the room. You have to have proper data as to what the finances look like, and we have to get to a point where we share it. We share it. We share it so we can grow the sport and the people around the sport. Otherwise, we will lose it.
Mm,
We will
mm,
we will lose the quality of the sport if we don't get to a point. I mean, we figured that out to a point with cup match. Cup match were figured out is played 1 year here, 1 year there, regardless
mm.
of who the winner is. Remember, cup
Right.
match used to be if you won, you keep it.
Well, just the second year, you had to
Yeah,
you had to hold on. You had to hold on to it
to it.
or not lose it that first year
Right.
because it was 2 years about. And then they decided, you know what? Let's just do it year about, and actually, like you said, they sat down, they worked out the data of sharing costs and everything, and both clubs agreed. Now, that's just two clubs sitting down. Uh, and you start talking about, because remember, even the teams that are in the first division with football have to agree because you have promotion and relegation.
No. Right. No. Exactly. But you know what? With my travels now, right, and I've seen the political challenges of sport in other countries. So you take, and I'm gonna speak to the UK. These same challenges existed for them 30 years ago with their different tiers of league and more teams, and they figured out how to structure that. America's going through its challenges with football as to America has two bodies that are implementing football through coach education and different things that they're still banging heads with who's in power, which
Yeah.
way we're going, you know, and it's still banging heads. The professional environment's banging head with the college system, and they haven't created a whole system to develop the whole sport yet. They've done it with basketball. They know what their system is. But in Europe and the UK, they figured out a whole system to grow the sport, with the Premier League being the top echelon. And you see the money that's there, and the money that's there is encourage other nations to participate and come to their country. So these challenges, if we can learn the history of those challenges, how other countries did it, and understand we have to go through these challenges. We have to go through these tribal wars, I guess. Let's call it that. Let's call it what it's going to be. Come on, let's accept what it's going to be. We're going to be these territorial wars that this is mine. To what is the best thing to do for sports,
Mm.
and what is the best thing to do for football? What is the best thing to do for cricket? Now, you bring up an interesting story, an interesting point when you mentioned National Stadium. So let's just imagine for 1 minute. We know we need more activity at our national stadium. Imagine for that our football now is for the rest of the year is implemented and facilitated at national stadium. Yeah, because it's a more conducive environment for safety, fans, and everything like that. So imagine that it gets facilitated throughout the year from National Stadium just so we can finish it, from a Monday to a Sunday or whatever we call it. Then we got to work out profit sharing. We got to work out where money goes, how we afford the national grant. But in the interest of the sport, it might be a good idea to consider the use of a national stadium to finish our season.
Mm.
You got the north field, two fields there, and you also got the main stadium. We're not got a lot of international tournaments coming in for different sports right now. We know that national stadium needs to be utilized from a financial standpoint. You know, how is that a possibility that we can keep it ticking over somehow?
Yeah, we would have to work in the rugby league because they play there as well once they return to sport as well. So
Yeah,
they have their weekend matches there. But that would all have to be sat down and discussed with the
and
national sports.
discuss as to what does this look like to get sports back up and running.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the Premier Division and the surprises, leading goal scorers, and the like. We'll be right back.
Sure.
We've already sung the praises of Welch's famous grape juice, so healthful and refreshing, a truly great family favorite. So with the festive season fast approaching, remember to stock up on Welch's sparkling juice cocktails, flavorful and thirst-quenching, another celebration of the greatness of the grape. The Welch's White, Red, and Rosé are all wonderful on their own, but for a special seasonal treat, try Welch's sparkling juice cocktail in festive punch recipes, garnished with cinnamon sticks or fresh cranberries. All non-alcoholic and also festive. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Welcome back. Well, Maceo, we have two youngsters leading the league in goal scoring with 8 goals each, and Shea Brengman from Robin Hood and Enrique Russell from PHC Zebras. Enrique jumped out to that early lead. He did score in his last match to get to 8, and Shea started scoring goals as he did a couple of seasons ago. I think last season he started off really, really strong in the Dudley Eve, but then had a lot of work commitments where he couldn't train. He didn't play much, but he's showing his worth early in the season. Now, where do these two go from here? It's kind of a wait and see thing. But your anticipation of this goal scoring battle?
Yeah. Again, football game is rhythm. Is rhythm. You get in the rhythm, and you know where to find the goal. You're training. You got the edge. These two are going to suffer with that edge, and especially with, for me, Shea Brengman. Shea Brengman has not been the fittest player over the years. Fitness, he struggled with the fitness, and I was quietly hoping with this newfound goal scoring hunger that it was going to push his fitness to push for a space in the national team. So my money will be on the youngster and Enrique Russell that's trying to prove himself. He's trying to prove himself. He's 21 years old, and he's gonna, for me, show the hunger coming out of this period to get back at it.
Yeah. Well, the benefit for Enrique is that he's got a bunch of guys around his same age, or if not younger,
exactly,
that are willing to work hard and run and run and run. Where on the other side, Shea has the experienced guys that will rely heavily on their experience to stay in it, and the fact that they have this lead. And I know you challenged John Barry early in the year about that having that killer instinct,
that ruthlessness piece,
that ruthlessness, and basically he even said that he had to look at himself and actually become that person, like stop being Mr. Nice Guy. So I know over this period whatever work he's been able to have with the team, he wants to keep that foot on the other team's throats to ensure that they don't have a let up.
No, you got it right.
I don't know how deep their squad is, but with this time off, it's a blessing in disguise that your aging players have a rest. But once football starts again, and if we do have to play multiple games a week, how much of your legs will be left come end of February? And the other major part is, once the national team starts training, how many of your squad will be involved in that you won't have legs come game day, because the level of working to get them up to a fitness is going to be a key for the national squad.
I totally agree with you. I think this period could potentially derail Robin Hood. I really think this break could derail them, because their maturity, they can be distracted with other things in life. So definitely it could potentially derail their title challenge, and gives everybody else an opportunity to refocus and come at it again. And you're right about the national commitments. Once those national commitments, and talking to the likes of Carl Lightbourne the other day, he might have to rely heavily on the local players. And where do you think the local players are going to be pulled from, for the most part of it? They're going to be pulled from Robin Hood.
Yep.
Those local players, so they're going to be a potential victim of their own success.
Yes.
Which happens. So that's going to create that's going to create a tricky balance, and that can refocus players. Whereas I look at Enrique Ross, who I know him quite well. He's my first cousin, so I know his environment of kids the same age. They're playing football. I'm gonna tell you, they are. in groups are under 10. They're playing football. You got Marco Warren, that's a football fanatic. He'll set up training sessions at Purvis.
Right.
He will. He would adhere to the maximum 10, and they will be still at it and developing their skills. Whereas Robin Hood could be more saturated now as to what are they actually doing right now. Are they keeping fit? Are they just going into their now work?
Right. I have been. I mean, how people go by certain places prior to this period. They have been training in their required groups. John Barry has had them, out on BA field doing what they need to do. But like you said, the one thing is that other commitment and that togetherness. They work better together, and having that group working apart can actually hurt them. And you're right that their early season success can actually hurt them with national team call-ups.
National team call-ups. That's going to be.
Because remember, they currently have the 2 center halves from the national squad playing in their team.
And you lose those 2 center halves.
Anton Russell's back playing sweeper.
Anton Russell's back playing sweeper. Yeah.
And their goalkeeper is also in the national squad setup too.
Yep.
So.
Yep. You see the picture.
And if by chance Shea Ringman is called up as well, that adds another problem to him. Well, mind you, he'll be fit, but he won't be fit for you for 2 months, because working towards getting fit is actually going to take a lot out of him.
They have also Aurier Simmons on at Robin Hood. He's the utility player. He's been the utility player for the national setup since he's been 14, 15.
Right.
So he's quite capable of getting into the national. So you have Liam Avon.
That's right.
Liam is a mainstay in the national team and is a mainstay in Robin Hood's team.
Right.
So it's
Well,
got a problem. It's got a problem.
well, yeah, and again, it all depends on when the national sports setup is pulled together, and obviously they won't know anything until the return to sports comes into play as well, and what they're able to do at the National Sports Center. Then, I'm sorry, at the Clyde Center of Excellence, because that's where they train. But the other part is Coach Lightbourne and his staff finding out the availability of the guys that are overseas. Because remember, it may be a FIFA window, but not as long as they need them for. And the fact that they're coming from the UK, that's all going to be a different kind of read into how these countries accept people. Because as we all know right now, some countries have banned people coming from the UK right now. So how does that look like? What does that look like in 3 months' time? So all of that has to be determined, and and then how do they get back to their clubs to get right back into the field?
I'm speaking with my son's academy director, and the England sports body have a Zoom meeting on the 31st of December.
Mm-hmm.
So they all have a Zoom meeting, and from that meeting, they're going to determine what the new implementation of sports looks like. So all the sporting people is going to be pushing to some level of normalcy.
Right.
But it's going to be that meeting on the 31st of December is going to be an important meeting that they're having over there as to, and it's called, that body's called Sports England. And
right.
What does it look like?
Well, you got to remember that they're not just looking at football; they're looking at all sports, and they have an Olympic year. So they need whenever it's an Olympic year, people tend to gravitate to the sport closest to them, to their house, to their neighborhood, or whatever. So they know that being that it's an Olympic year, they need their sport to be up and running to get more people involved. And as you know, more people involved means more sponsorship, means more activities, means so much more. So that conversation, I would love to be a fly on the wall of that Zoom call, because you could only imagine what some of them will be saying in order to encourage the government, the health department, to allow them to get back to operation.
We saw, if we're following the UK, they had a stimulus package for football.
Yeah.
That they're implemented, and they start to give out a stimulus package for football. Now we might be talking about a stimulus package for sports.
Sports, yeah. As we saw in there, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I saw it 2 weeks ago. The UK government has authorized funds for the Commonwealth Games, which will take place in Birmingham in 2022. They've actually increased the budget for preparation for that. So they're looking at making sure that sports is ready. And I see exactly what you said. They're going to actually put more money into a stimulus package just for sports, because they know the amateur level needs the kick in order for the professionals to reap the rewards.
Yeah, exactly. They know the value of the grassroots sport. They do recognize the value of the grassroots sports to continue to produce the athletes that play at the professional levels.
Yeah, because if they kill the grassroots, then you don't have no professional.
Yeah, they get it. And what's important, they also know the value of sports to their country financially.
Yes.
You look at the EPL, for example. We all look at it, we love it. But let's look at it from a tourism brand. How many people come to the UK yearly
to watch a game?
To watch a game. I go up there. I go to the UK 3 times a year. I probably take in 10 games plus a year.
So they got you on your hotel if you have to get a hotel.
Exactly.
They got you on the transportation getting there. They've got you getting the tickets to go to the game. They got you meals. They got you all over. So because they offer you a product.
They offer you a product that you're comfortable going in and paying for.
Mhm.
You know, I used to say that. I mean, at Cop Match in Bermuda is very traditional to my family, and it costs me $500 to participate in the 2 days of Cop Match. By the time I get food, and I lose my money on Crown and Anchor and the alcohol and
Right.
stuff. For 50 pounds, I went to Lords. You know, for 50 pounds, I went to Lords and I saw world class players, right?
Right.
And good thing Cop Match is traditional to me. You
But
know,
see, okay, and I'm glad we're on to this. We
yeah.
have to remember that in Bermuda, yes, we want to see quality. We want to see much more quality. But we have to remember we are on a scale of amateur playing sports.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times in a lot of conversations, a lot of people refer to the amateur players as professionals, and I think that's where we get mixed up. Like okay, you would go to the UK and you would watch a professional football game,
Mhm.
and then come back home and expect to see St. George's and St. David's play like Manchester City, Manchester United, and that's unfair.
Yeah, fair. No,
Right,
for me, I'm a little bit more analytical of that. I know where we are, but I'm
right,
also what it does to me is create the ambition about how do we improve.
right.
So
Well, yes,
yeah,
we want to improve,
like, okay, there's not an expectation that you perform to that level because I see what goes into that level for you to get there. But
but a
how do
lot of people don't.
yeah, how do we go? How do we figure out how to improve? So let's just take Cop Match, our biggest event. You know, how do we get to a place where we pay these players and we prepare them to play better? You know, what does that look like? Does that look like something we do in the grassroots of cricket? Does it look like something we do just for Cop Match? Does those two organizations, Somerset and St. George's, create a Cop Match company where they where they where they take ownership of the Cop Match and the brand of Cop Match that brings millions and millions of dollars in our economy during that time? You know, I look at Old Traffic, right, and I followed the history of United. Now, in the 1945, which was Old Trafford was bombed. The First World War, it was bombed. It was a bomb-ridden stadium, and I watched what two brothers done to build it up to what we see as the Theater Dreams today.
Mm.
So when I see those things, okay, it starts to motivate me as to say, well, what can we do to improve our sports? What does that look like, step by step? That we improve the sports, we improve the athlete, you know, and knowing that is a process that there's not an expectation from me that my cricket players should be just the same level as the cricket players, you know, for India, or the football players should, you know, somebody from Bermuda should be able to perform at the same level as somebody from Manchester United. I don't have that expectation, but I do have a ambition and a desire. Well, how do we improve?
Right.
What
Right.
does that look like? What do we do? Make one step here, one step
Well,
here.
well, if you look at it, the improvement has come over a period of time. Probably not to the speed in which we would like it, but if you look back, okay, we started with Clyde,
Mm.
right, and then we had Meshach and Cantuan. We had Kyle. You had
Mm.
Sean. You
Mm.
had gradually now, if you look at it, we've got playing at the senior level or under 23s and senior level, you have what, 9, 10 guys playing? And then at academies, you probably have 25 to 30 guys playing.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So gradually, individually, we're growing, but not to the
Right.
speed in which I think a
No,
lot of people would
no,
like, but we're making those steps.
I've had this conversation with many of my sporting people as to us growing individually with the kids that are over in the UK. So we can even take a Johnny Birchall at 16. He's the youngest professional.
Mhm.
That's a great achievement for him individually. As before, Clyde was our earliest professional at 18, and then Sean Goder at 22, and Nicky Wiles at 23, 21, 23. You know, so individually we're improving
Right.
because we're being exposed to certain things that we can implement. Now the next stage of our growth and our development is how do we collectively improve?
Right. Right.
What
But
does
that,
collective
again, that's
what does
something
collective
that's something
improvement
that takes
look like?
time as well, because it
And
we're
it takes
not.
time, and you have to have a whole gamut of plan. Like I give you an example. I know of Belgium's improvement. I know of Germany's system of improvement. So Belgium look like the smaller clubs because the bigger clubs won't budge because they was already dominating.
Mm,
They was dominating, so they didn't have no reason to budge.
right.
Like I'm already dominating, I'm winning. I got the best players, but they realized that wasn't good for the whole philosophy of football in Belgium because of you know. So they put together a proposal in Belgium, and I'll share it with you as well. They put together a proposal in Belgium to improve the overall development of football clubs. And if you watch Belgium, you'll now see an Anderlecht that was the top of it. Now they're in the middle of it. You know, they're building their way up, and it's changing. You know, but their proposal start producing the best players in the world.
Mm,
Vincent Company, De Bruyne. Belgium is now number one in the world. I don't agree with that. I don't know how FIFA does that, mind you, but Belgium is number one in the world. So they put a whole together proposal, and when you learn about that proposal that Belgium put in for the first 5 years, the bigger clubs didn't even accept it, and then afterwards they start to accept it because they saw the smaller clubs growing, getting better, and they accepted it. So the bigger clubs accepted it late. Same thing in Germany. Germany changed their whole way of implementing football because they fell behind in the world. You know, when you look at the history of Germany, mind you, they're now world champions again, but they went through a long hiatus of being world champions, and they changed their history of football, their way of implementing football, and they changed it through Franz Beckenbauer, where he left from being coach and to being president of Bayern Munich to becoming president of the actual association.
right. Right.
And changed the whole way. And now, if we look at Germany, they even have a different type of footballer.
Mm.
They don't have the robot no more. They have Ozil that can't even get on the field because you know they don't have the robot that they used to have. They used to come on. The Germans used to have the robot, but they created a new player, and that took them. That process was a 15-year process.
Okay.
I mean,
well, 15 years with millions and billions of dollars behind them. It's probably going to take us double that with what little funds we have.
I look at it from a perspective of programming. Programming is not really going to cost us anything. No. Now to implement, and when I say programming, we can put together a program that says how do we develop somebody? Like I'll give you an example of what I mean by programming. So right now, I know in some of the countries like Germany and the footballing countries, from U7s down, they're only playing 3-a-side football. And what that means, ratio at 3-a-side football, more people touching the ball, more people learning how to master the ball. In Bermuda, at our U7 level, we're playing 7-a-side football on a bigger field. So what that actually is saying that we're on this bigger field at our U7, our players are getting 3, 4, 5 seconds on the ball. There's no pressure on them. Don't put pressure on me. I look good. I don't got a problem knee. Whereas in those countries, they're playing on a smaller field and they're replicating the backyard. They're replicating the backyard and they're putting pressure on every time a player touches the ball to see how good you are, how quick you can think, how quick you can move. That's just programming. You know, now, yes, it's going to take financial stuff to make the fields look better, the goals look better, but we can put together programming for free, really. Yeah, yes, and what happens when you start putting together programming and I had this conversation a long time ago. I have a proposal I did with North Village about when I look at Najai, Remy, Sadeo, Anayas, and a Johnny, what they're doing in the UK, that was a vision of programming that we were doing at North Village, 10 years ago. And that was under when Derek Broadley came here and he introduced some new things to me. And with that programming, and Derek Broadley's history in Bermuda is that he was at Crystal Palace in a time where they were close to administration,
Right.
meaning they didn't have no money. So he had to figure out how to keep producing players without money.
Right.
And programming done that. And I learned that at North Village that were the foundation for players like Remy, Johnny, Najai. And the idea that I was given to North Village at that time was, let's organize ourselves business-wise, that if these players get to this level, we get some type of compensation for it. Let's be a farm where people want to be interested in what we're doing. Same thing what they're doing to the baseball players that are coming out of Curacao.
Right.
It's
right.
programming down there. It's not money.
Yeah.
They're not got the best facilities. It's programming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's take another commercial break. When we come back, we're going to kick off with the first division in the final segment.
Sure.
We'll be right back.
Coconut oil has been popular here in Bermuda as a skin moisturizer for generations, but is sometimes avoided in cookery because of its unhealthy reputation. We've witnessed a change in attitudes as recent findings indicate that coconut oil is actually heart healthy and can enhance our immune systems, increase metabolism, energy and endurance, and improve digestion. Nutiva coconut oil is a superfood in its own right, and this month we're featuring Nutiva organic shortening made with organic coconut and red palm oils and also hemp seed oil. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Well, Maceo currently in the first division. Hamilton Parish and Young Man Social Club both have 16 points. Hamilton Parish have played 6 games. They've won 5, drawn 1. Social Club have played 7 games. They've won 5, drawn 1, and lost 1. Then you have Boulevard Blazers and St. David's both on 10 points. Boulevard have played 6 with 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. St. David's have played 7, 3 wins, 1 draw, and 3 losses. And they're followed by Vasco, and we saw Vasco quickly improve under new coach Gary Adams. They have 3 wins, 4 losses in their 7 matches for 9 points. Flanagan's have 2 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses in 6 games for 7 points. Island Rangers have 1 win, 2 draws, 3 losses in their 6 matches for 5 points. And Wolves have picked up 1 point, losing 6 games in 7 games. With 1 point. So that first division, obviously, we know it's going to come down. We look at how this will affect both Hamilton Parish. Well, Hamilton Parish have the numbers in their squad now with the pickups at the November break, but it's how Social Club will manage coming out of this, because obviously the same problem that I look at Social Club having, Boulevard may probably have as well with them, and to that matter, St. David's in when we resume to play.
Yeah, I think Social Club and Boulevard, you're right, are gonna, like, this period, will they lose focus? I think Hamilton Parish under Sergio will not allow them to lose focus during this period and be ready for whatever comes out of the blocks in January. Social Club for me would have been a momentum team. They needed to keep playing. They needed to keep playing, and we know Boulevard, they could be night and day. So they definitely needed to keep playing, right? They needed to focus on football so they don't get distracted. Whereas I think there's a level of maturity that's going to take place at Hamilton Parish to keep focused. So this period will aid them a little bit better coming out of this period, rating. And it will give the coach a little bit of time to assess some of the things that he wants to improve on.
Right. And obviously Jordan Otterbridge has run away with the league leading goal scoring department right now. He has 11. The next one is on 7. But obviously if he can keep finding the back of the net, it kind of keeps Hamilton Parish at a distance against anyone with still Social Club to play. So that for them just remaining focused, and as you say with Sergio, it kind of keeps them on the straight and narrow. Now let me ask you this question, because this is vital. If you were part of the association and you have this dilemma, because you remember you still have to make up 2 weekends of league play for the first half of the season. If return to sport takes until the end of January, would you push to cancel the FA Cup again?
Hey, first of all, let me say Noel Phillips was furious at not being able to win their next FA Cup, right? So you put me in a little touchy situation, right? You put me now. I have an obvious bias with always playing football. I have an obvious bias that I will always look to find the solution to play football.
Yes. Yes.
That's my bias as it relates to, and now I have a even bigger bias as it relates to sports.
Right.
You know, how do we figure out how to play football, sports? So if it's me, I'm finding the solution for it. If it's me, I'm finding what does that solution look like, you know. And I might concede. I will concede to the Friendship Cup because it was played over Christmas time, and
right.
I would concede to that. I would, and it never really got off the ground per se, you know, as teams.
Right, you had the first round matches, but yeah, you still had quarterfinals, semifinals. Yeah. So but remember, the FA Cup is the same situation. We've only had the first round.
Yeah, but I would look to figure out how to find that solution.
Right. If the FA Cup is not in the field for this season, it allows you, what is that, 5 more weekends
to play to
get in the league matches.
Look how I'm thinking, and I know this is not going to go. I'm going to extend the season, man. But people's going to talk about cricket, right? I'm like, extend the season.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm going with it. Extend the season and make it happen, right? And that's where I come from. Each sport, cricket and football, have to have their own selfish.
Right. Now remember, we're going to lose. Right. Remember, we're going to lose 2 weekends in March that we probably didn't anticipate. If you extend the season, we're going to lose 2 weekends in June because that's the next 2 rounds of the World Cup qualifiers. So, you know, we're a rock and a hard place right now. I would say, you know what? Listen, if all things being equal, I would give up on the FA Cup for a second year.
Yeah. Hey, I'm like the English, man. That FA Cup's ours, man. Go.
Oh yeah, it hurt not to play the FA Cup final this year, and I'm pretty sure.
Hey, I actually heard that. in my household, right? I actually heard that, you know, you're not playing the FA Cup, you know, but I get it, and I, you know, it's difficult decisions that the association has to make in the protection of the country. So I do get that.
And I believe if all the clubs sat down and realized the significance of having the league be completed, I think cooler heads will prevail in that.
Well, you know where I always come from. And I used to always say that I never wanted to be in a boardroom in football. I never wanted to be there because I always wanted to be on the field. And I always get the perspective from the player. They want to play every game.
Mm-hmm.
They always want to play. And that's the perspective that I've always that's been there to me, how the player perceives stuff. And the player doesn't perceive all the other stuff. You know that.
Right.
He perceives, I want to play.
Until they lose, and then they say, well, stop the tournament.
Yeah. It's like, I want to play. You know.
Right.
And I've always had a perspective from the player's perspective to let's figure out how to let them play, man.
Yeah, but again, those type of decisions, I'm pretty sure it will be the clubs making. Now, here lies one of the problems that I can foresee from the outside looking in, and I'll probably, people will probably agree or disagree, is this. The decision's going to come down to the association and the clubs. But who from the clubs are in the meeting?
The presidents.
See, now, if I'm the captain of the team, listen, I'm getting with you, or I'm going to be part of the conversation with you.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Then the people like Andrew Bascom, many years is saying, well, we have a referees association, and now we have a coaches association that's in the meetings, but we don't have a player association. The players are the only ones that are not organized.
Right.
So the referees are properly organized. So they lobby. The clubs are organized where they lobby for whatever they need. The referees are in the meetings. They lobby for what they need. Now there's a coaching association that's in the meeting, and the players are the major resources of our business, our industry, and they ain't got any representation in that meeting.
But you said it at the beginning. They can't come together.
They can't come together. They have to figure out how to come together.
But it brings up a good point, because a lot of people didn't realize this until the pandemic happened and in the Premiership returned to play, where they have a Premiership Captains Association. So all the captains are on meetings with the FA to lobby what goes on and speak on behalf of their teams.
Yep.
So I could understand if the clubs or the players came together and said, listen, okay, well, let's have our leader be part of our organization. How many clubs are there? It could be, you go from first division right through to the Premiership. So whoever's the captain of that team is the member and speaks on behalf of the players at these meetings. So when you go to the association meeting, or there is a meeting, you have representation, because once you form that group, you then, say to the association, what do we need to do to become members of the association to be able to vote?
The most recent adapted one that's affiliate member is the Coaches Association.
Right.
Now we're in the meetings and we talk about things as it relates to coaches.
Right.
And the players need the representation. They need to organize. Otherwise, they get the short end of the stick all the time. Or they're not represented.
Right. But then it's them that turn around and say, nobody listens to us. Well, here's your opportunity to form something structurally, collectively, and come to the meetings to speak to, and believe it or not, to speak to your president, to speak to your other presidents, to speak to the president and the organization of the Bermuda Football Association, to the referees, to the coaches. That's your opportunity.
That's your opportunity to. Well, let's just cross-reference. And I understand this night and day. There was a conversation during the pandemic in the UK as do players take wage cuts?
Right.
And the Players Association came together. It's like, no, you're not going to enforce legally a wage cut on it. Now, if a player from his own consciousness wants to decide to do that, he has that right to do that. If that's what they want to decide at each club, but you're not going to enforce that in them.
That's where they found out that the captains are the actual leaders of that organization. They spoke on behalf of their players.
And that was important that they get that representation.
Yeah. Because like you said, the biggest stakeholders in the game are the players. The biggest stakeholder in sports are the athletes. But they don't realize how much they control things if they were to come together.
But let's think of it bigger. I think athletes are starting to realize that their platform is a big one. And we can go way back to 1938 at the Olympics in Germany, where the two black guys stood up and put the fists up, and they sent a worldwide message, just change stuff. It brought awareness of it. So they used the platform of sports. And now we could talk about Black Lives Matters, where they take a knee. We could talk about Rashford that says, hold on, government, you can cut the funding. You can cut the funding for free school lunches. I was a kid that needed that. and he
Right.
changed government's mind. So I think it's starting to understand the platform that the athletes are starting to understand the platform that they have
Yeah.
politically to influence society.
I
You know,
think it would take
in
a
Bermuda
global.
we don't get that yet. We haven't
Yeah.
realized that yet, but worldwide, the athletes worldwide are starting to understand they have a platform to influence society.
I think that will take a big stance come the Olympics because they just made a ruling that athletes can protest on the podium, whereas before it was a no-no.
It was a no-no.
Now the athletes commission, along with the IOC, along with all the sponsors and everybody had their say, and they've basically said that the athlete now can protest on the within rights
On the
within
podium. So
on the podium.
the athlete starting to gain its power and its respect.
And I think
Yeah.
remember now, a lot of people watch football, but not a lot of people watch. They watch when the game starts. They don't know the protest and the what these players are standing up for. But
Yeah.
a lot of people watch medal presentations, especially around each country when they know the country has won a medal. So that is a focal point when it comes to the Olympics that I think a lot of people will stop and realize that, hey, we are changing. We are allowing things that have been kind of pushed to the back. We're now acknowledging them.
Oh, I mean, we could talk. It was an interesting conversation, Al, because we could talk about the Olympics in 1938 in Nazi Germany. Hitler used that Olympics as his platform to show we're the dominant race,
Yeah,
and and he used it as a platform to say we're dominant, and we're going to show you we're dominant because we're about to take over the world and go to war with everybody, and we're going to show you through sports that we're dominant. But he
right.
found something else differently. He found out, yeah, actually not. It was a lesson that he got taught that
Yes,
you're actually not dominant and a superior race. And many dynamics happen in that Olympics there because the black athlete and the white athlete in the Olympic village start getting along.
yes.
They, people if they follow history, Jesse Owens, and at that time I can't remember the German guy's name. They became really good friends after Jesse Owens is beaten because they was going through the same struggle.
Right.
Jesse Owens was going through a different struggle in his own country as the black, and this guy was going through his own struggle as wanting to be an athlete. Now, I can't remember his name, and I will because it's not in my head. But he ended up after those Olympics, he went to war.
Right.
Jesse Owens went to a different war when he went back.
Yes. Yeah.
It's still two wars that went on, but those wars changed the world, and it changed the world in some positive ways. The Jesse Owens story over there, it changed the perception of the black athlete that he couldn't be disciplined, that he couldn't do this, he wasn't capable. He showed that he was very disciplined.
Right.
So the athletes are sports is a great equalizer.
Definitely.
And sports it's been underutilized. Now people are learning how to utilize it to make better societies.
Right. Well, Maceo, I want to wish you a happy new year as this will be our last show for 2020. And we definitely will be on next week if, as you had said earlier, the return to sports. So we want to be able to give an update on that as far as if we have an update from the Bermuda Football Association. I'll try to get someone like Shannon Burgess, who's the chairman of competitions, to come on to give an update once we get this return to sport policy up and running and what their thoughts are as far as restarting, and maybe hear more about whether or not we'll have a completed season that would include the FA Cup as well. So as well as the friendship, because we haven't had an update on whether or not that will resume and what the plan is. Okay.
Most definitely, and I'd like to wish. First of all, thank you for the opportunity and this platform to share my my passion for sports and football in particular. And I like to wish Bermuda a safe, healthy, and enjoyable holiday season and New Year.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Thank you. There.
Well, everyone that watches this show, I want to wish you all a happy New Year from the Island Stats Football Show and our family. Good night.
Good night.